In this video, I'm going to do a demonstration of how to create this shape here. It's got several interesting angles on it, and let's just start. Let's make sure ortho is on, object snap is on. I'll start with the bottom line. So now if you notice, because there's so many dimensions and angles in here, it gets very, very cluttered. And you'll see this sometimes with complicated parts where there's a table that calls out the distances. So for example, AB between A and B is 3.5 inches, between B and C is 0.85, etc. So you have to follow the table along with the angles. So I'll start here. And that first line is 3.5. It's a horizontal line. And then BC, that's 0.85, and that's a vertical line going up. And I'm going to hit enter and just stop where I am. So I've got this right now. So now what I need is this CD, which is 1.2 inches long, but it's at this angle that's called out of 123 degrees. Now remember the way AutoCAD understands angles. 0 is to the right, 90 is up, 180 is to the left, 270 is down. So if I use this number of 123, what's going to happen if I start a line here, click on that point, see CD is 1.2, so if I do 1.2, remember the technique is the distance, then hit tab, and then I'm going to call out the angle. Oops, I need to turn my ortho off, it'll make it work a little smoother. That angle there is 123, and hit enter, and see where the line is. It's supposed to be going this way. It's going this way. Why is that? Well, remember 0, 90, 180. So it's going from here and saying 123 is here. That's not what we have. So that's a matter of interpretation of this drawing. So I can't just input that. What I'm going to do is think about from here up to, if I draw a line straight across, that'd be a 90-degree angle. So what I need is just this piece here, because my 0 axis is right there. So I need to take 123 minus 90. So start my line there. And again, CD is 1.2. Hit tab. And if I take 123 degrees minus 90 degrees, that's 33 degrees. Hit enter. And there's that line. Okay. DE is a vertical, and that's 1.6, so I can just draw that. I still, make sure my ortho's on. So DE is 1.6. Hit enter. I'm going to stop the command here. I'm going to hit escape just so we can get caught up to where we are here. We're at point E. We need to go EF. EF is 0.65. Now notice again how that angle is called out. If I type in 118 degrees, it's going to draw a line that goes out in this direction because 90 is straight up, 0 is to the right. So once again, I'll have to do a little math. I'll have to take 118 minus 90, and that's 28 degrees. So click on that point. EF is 0.65, tab, and then 28, hit enter. And now I've got that line right there. FG is a vertical line, so with my ortho on, just draw that straight up. And that value is G. Let's see, I'm not sure what I did there. Okay, so FG is 0.4, so with my ortho on, 0.4, hit enter. I'm going to hit escape again, just see where we are. We're at point G. The next step is GH, which is 2.9, and that's got an angle of 78 degrees called out. Once again, you got to think about how AutoCAD understands angles. 78 degrees to AutoCAD, if I started here and called out a 78-degree angle, it's going to go off, up and to the right, because 0 to 90 is in there. So I have to think about how am I going to get there. Well, I think the easiest way probably is think about if this space right here is 180 degrees. So if I had a line over here, and that's my 0, and then a line over here, that'd be 180. If I took, well, it's easier probably like this since we have 78. Let's try that again. So here's 0, vertical is 90. Just take 90 plus 78. That's a lot easier than working the other way. So again, 0, 90, 78. So 90 plus 78 gives us 168 degrees. So that's the angle I'm going to type in there. Start there. GH is 2.9. Hit tab, and then 168, and hit enter. And there's that line. I'm going to put this JH on here now, or HJ. Now that's the mystery. We don't know what that length is. We have to figure that out. So if that's the case, and sometimes when you're constructing objects, you don't know the length, especially on a diagonal line. Let's come back over here to our starting point of A and look at what we do know. We know that AJ is 1.9. So let's just draw that line from here. Again, it's a vertical line. My ortho is still on, 1.9, enter. So how am I going to get this line? Well, in this case, I'm clever enough that I worked my way around that. All I have to do is connect the dots there, right? If everything else is correct, that should be 42 degrees. Let's check it. So go up to dimension. So typically it's going to be on linear. Just rotate this over to angular and click on the two lines. And remember, we're not going to dimension on the part. It's tempting, I know. 42 degrees. So that looks pretty good. Okay, now when you're dimensioning these, you always want to dimension angles off of either horizontal or vertical lines. Don't dimension angles off of angles. But I think we're fine. In this case, everything is going to be fine. Now, it's okay if you have the arrows. If they're on the part, it's fine, but try to make something that's really easy to read. Now, one thing you may notice here, and we've seen this before, that these dimensions are pretty big for the size of this part, and that's an easy fix. Let's go ahead and fix that. So go to Annotation, Dimension Style Manager, say Modify. Now remember, the challenge here is that the fit or the size of the dimensions doesn't fit the scale of the drawing. So go to Fit. And in this case, the dimensions are too big. Let's just make them smaller. So now don't make them super small, but let's try something like 0.75 and say OK and close that and see what happens. Now, they should update. If they don't, just move them a little bit. So that's better. I think we can probably live with that. We couldn't go a little bit smaller, maybe. We want to make sure that, one thing you want to do with a drawing is make sure it's easy to see the object. It doesn't get overpowered by the dimensions. Let's try 0.6, so that's going to be 60% size. That looks pretty good. So, I can scoot this in now here to take up less space as needed, and so forth. So I can just put the rest of those dimensions on there. Again, do not dimension on the part. It's very tempting with these angles, I understand. That's not permitted. Okay, so if you have angles, I would put those dimensions on there before you do the linear dimensions or other stuff, because they're kind of tied to where that goes. Now to identify this, let's just make a little text box here. And I'm going to use capitals. I'll use put an A on there. Now I did shrink down the size of these dimensions, so I'd use the same kind of scale here since I use a 0.6. So I'm going to do is highlight this and come up here. And the default size is 0.2. If I take 0.2 times 0.6, it's going to be 0.12. So I'm going to make the size of that 0.12, and you can see it shrinks down, and that looks similar in size. Don't have significantly different size text. It looks silly on there. Now I can continue doing that, or once I have one of these, what I usually do is just use this copy tool. If you use copy, you're going to click on the A, hit enter, and then you got to click on the A again because that's your base point that you're going to copy it from. And then you can go to your other points. Now if you want to turn your ortho and your object snap off, that's a good idea. And I'm just going to go ahead and put A's on each of these corners, and then I'll just come back and just edit the text. I think it's probably the easiest way. If you want to make new ones each time, it's totally fine. So now all I got to do is double click on that, backspace, oops, capital B, make that a B, double click on that, backspace, make that a C. Okay, so I just went ahead and did all those. You don't need to watch me do that. It's really all the same. So now if I try to put all these linear dimensions on there, it's going to be a crazy difficult mess. It's going to be really hard to see the part. So I'm going to use this tabular technique here. Before I do that though, let me put this finish up the drawing before I forget. If you notice there's this hex cut out on this part right here, and it would be a chore to reconstruct, to draw that hex from scratch. So luckily there is a tool for that. If you come up here, so typically you're going to see this, the rectangle tool right there. Right, so what you're going to do is click on that little arrow and you'll see the Polygon tool. So click on Polygon. So then it's going to ask you, don't click anything yet, it's going to ask you how many sides. The default is 4-sided like a rectangle. What we're going to do is a hex, so it's 6 sides. So hit 6, hit enter, and then it's going to say, where do you want the center of this? Right, so I need to know where to put the center of that. So let's go back, I'm going to hit escape. Let's do some offsets. So if you notice where this hex is located, it's 1.25 inches over and 1 inch over. So let's use our offset tool. That's 1.25, and then a 1, just like we're drawing a circle. So up to polygon. Number of sides is already set for me of 6, so I hit enter. Now the center, I'm going to need to have my object snap turned on. So just click on there. And now inscribed or circumscribed, it means is the circle inside of the hex or outside the hex? I think the easiest way to do it is the oh, sorry, I just told you that backwards. Let's do circumscribed, I'll show you the difference. So then just move your cursor, and if you have this thing on ortho, it'll kind of force it to be either that way or that way. That's the easiest way to do it. And then you're going to want to type what that size of that is, and you can see on the drawing it's a 1-inch hex, so just type in, and you can see how that says the radius of the circle, so hit enter, and I did not do that right. Let's do it again. 6 is good, center, turn my object snap back on, and circumscribed, turn my ortho on, and it's asking me for the radius of the circle, right? So it's 0.5. There we go. So if I measure this, see that's my 1-inch hex. So if I were to draw a circle here, that's a 1-inch circle. You can see that that's the circumscribed. The circle is inside of that, whereas the inscribed, the circle would be on the outside. So circumscribed is a little bit easier to understand. Okay, let's erase that, although I'm going to come back and use that again. Okay, so that's good. Let's erase. These are just construction lines. Now I've got 4 decimals on here. I don't want that. Let's change that to dimension styles, primary units, and it looks like I want 2 decimals. Now I'm going to try to locate this, and you can see I can't. All I can grab on is the corners. That's not going to be very descriptive for this. If you attach a dimension to the corners here, you really need a center. If we go to annotate and we try to put a center mark there, it won't allow us. You need to have a circle. So here's a little kind of cheat around that, is go ahead and draw a circle. I know I had one there a minute ago. That's inside of this. In order to do that, should have left that circle on there, but you'll think ahead a little bit. Now let me draw a circle there. And we already know that's a 1-inch circle. So now I can go to annotate, center mark, click on that circle, and that'll put some center marks on there. It's a little bit of work. If you think ahead, it'll be a little bit easier for you. So now I can dimension that based off of those center. Right. And let's see, oh, I need the other. Now on this one, remember, you can have extension lines and so forth on the part, but you can't have the actual number. So do not put that dimension in there. Pull that dimension out. If it doesn't want to cooperate, turn your object snap off sometimes. That'll help. Oops. Let's do that again. The other thing, and sometimes you'll have to do that, is go ahead and place the dimension, hit escape, and then click on it, and then you can pull it out where you want it. And again, if your object snap is off, sometimes that helps you. If your ortho's off, sometimes that helps you, gives you a little more freedom to move this around. Don't get too close to that, it'll be confusing. And you notice I tried to kind of line these up, so that's a good way to do that dimension. Okay, so there is our overall shape. We're going to need to make this table next to put the values in. We can use that table function. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, expand this out so I got a little bit more space here. Okay, so if we go to, it's in the annotate tab, you'll see it's kind of hidden in here, but there's a table tool. Now, this thing's a little cumbersome, quite honestly. It's not super easy to use, but you'll use it a few times, you'll be okay. Now notice how the layout is. It's got a title, it has headers, and then it has data. All I want is that very simple table. So I want to have 2 rows. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to have 3 rows, and I'm going to have 2 columns. And this is the part that's kind of weird because it wants to put a title. I don't want a title. I'm just going to put data. And I don't want to put a header on that, so I'm just going to put data. And that's why I'm doing three rows, because it's going to count that's going to be a row, that's going to be a row, and then I get 3 rows. So you have to play with this a little bit. So that gives me 5 spaces and 2 columns. So then just go in there and just type in AB equals 3.5, hit enter, BC equals 0.85, hit enter, and so forth. Now when you get to that HJ, you're going to want to put the value in. You'll just have to measure that. That's going to be part of the fun of this one. And then of course, make sure you label this and put your name on there. Okay, and put on a drawing sheet, and that would finish up that assignment, right? So that's how I would do that one. Now your exercise is a little bit different, but the same process goes into creating that drawing.